In the heart of Canada, a political earthquake is shaking the very foundations of the nation. For years, frustrations have simmered quietly across Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and interior British Columbia. But now, those frustrations have exploded into a bold, unified declaration, one that Ottawa never saw coming. These provinces, once loyal pillars of Confederation, have issued a massive joint statement that has stunned the country and left many Canadians asking the unthinkable question: is this the beginning of Canada's breakup? The announcement was delivered with precision and force. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith stood shoulder to shoulder with Saskatchewan's Scott Moe, Manitoba's Wab Kinew, and a coalition of Interior B.C. leaders. Together, they declared that Ottawa's overreach has gone too far, that the West will no longer be treated as a colony, and that if the federal government continues to ignore their demands, separation will no longer be a distant threat. It will become a concrete reality. The shockwaves from this statement were immediate. In Ottawa, Prime Minister Mark Carney rushed into emergency meetings with his cabinet, trying to contain what some insiders are already calling the greatest threat to national unity since Quebec's referendum. But unlike Quebec, this rebellion isn't about culture or language. It's about power, resources, and the future of Canada's economic engine. And that makes it even more dangerous for the country's stability. For decades, the Western provinces have felt like Ottawa's cash machine. Billions of dollars have flowed eastward through transfer payments, while Western industries, oil, gas, agriculture, and mining, have been regulated, restricted, and taxed into frustration. When Alberta voted to explore pulling out of the Canada Pension Plan, it sent a signal that the old system was breaking down. Now, with Saskatchewan and Manitoba aligning, and with Interior B.C. joining the chorus, that signal has become a thunderclap across the prairies. But here's where the betrayal cuts deepest. According to documents leaked to provincial governments, Ottawa has been quietly negotiating new economic and environmental deals with Eastern premiers. Deals that would tighten regulations on energy and agriculture in the West while providing exemptions and subsidies to Ontario and Quebec. When the Western leaders uncovered this, their anger boiled over. And that's when they decided enough was enough. Premier Danielle Smith delivered words that echoed across the nation: "We are not second-class provinces. We will not be Ottawa's piggy bank, and we will not stand by while our industries are crippled for the benefit of others. If Ottawa will not respect us, we will chart our own course." The reaction from ordinary Western Canadians has been electric. From small farming towns in Saskatchewan to the oil sands of Alberta, from mining communities in Manitoba to logging towns in BC, rallies have erupted. People are waving provincial flags, chanting slogans of independence, and demanding action. For the first time in generations, the West feels united, not just against Ottawa, but for itself. Meanwhile, in the East, panic is setting in. Economists are warning that if the West breaks away, Canada could lose up to 65% of its energy resources, nearly half of its agricultural exports, and billions in tax revenue. The Canadian dollar could collapse. Investors are jittery. And foreign leaders, from Washington to Brussels, are watching closely, wondering if Canada is on the verge of a fragmentation that could reshape global trade routes. But the rebellion is not without risks. Even within the West, there are divisions. Manitoba's Premier Wab Kinew, while critical of Ottawa, has urged caution, warning that Indigenous nations must be respected in any discussions of sovereignty. Interior B.C. leaders know they speak for only part of their province, while the coastal regions remain loyal to Ottawa. And within Alberta itself, there are those who fear that separation could be a leap into the unknown. Still, the momentum is undeniable. Political scientists are comparing this moment to the early stages of Brexit, a movement once dismissed as impossible, but which grew into an unstoppable tide. Western premiers are already discussing practical steps, creating a joint economic bloc, coordinating energy policy, and even exploring the creation of a Western currency. Each step, they argue, brings them closer to real independence, and each step increases their bargaining power against Ottawa. For Prime Minister Mark Carney, the challenge is existential. His government has promised national unity, green energy, and reconciliation. But now he faces a revolt that could undo all of it. Sources inside his cabinet admit that the Prime Minister is deeply worried. Some say he has already begun reaching out to U.S. President Donald Trump, seeking assurances that Washington will back a united Canada and not exploit divisions to secure better energy deals with the West. But Trump, ever the dealmaker, has remained vague. He has praised Alberta's leadership and hinted that the U.S. would welcome direct negotiations with Western provinces. For Carney, that is the nightmare scenario, not only losing control over the West, but watching it pivot toward Washington in search of trade, security, and recognition. But here's where the story takes an even stranger turn. Just hours after the Western Premier's announcement, whispers began leaking out of Washington. According to senior aides, President Donald Trump is privately preparing a proposal that could radically shift the balance of power, a direct U.S. Western Provinces Trade Pact, bypassing Ottawa entirely. The idea alone has set Canadian politics on fire. If Trump pushes forward, it could give the West unprecedented leverage, forcing Ottawa into concessions or accelerating a full-scale breakup of Confederation. Insiders say Carney's government is scrambling to craft a counteroffer, one that promises billions in new infrastructure spending and partial control over resource policy. But Western leaders know the pattern all too well: promises made, promises broken. And this time, they insist the stakes are too high to be bought off with half measures. So the question grows louder: is Canada entering its final chapter as one nation, or are we simply witnessing the West forcing Ottawa to finally wake up? The days ahead will bring answers that could shape the future of every Canadian family. The country waits, divided and anxious, as history unfolds. One truth is clear: the West has spoken, and Ottawa can no longer pretend it hasn't heard. Whether Canada survives this crisis intact or splinters into something unrecognizable will depend on what happens next. And if you want to stay ahead of the breaking twists and shocking revelations, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the story of Canada's future is only just beginning, and you won't want to miss what happens next.